श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने श्रीकृष्णलीलाकथने सुदक्षम् औदार्यमाधुर्यगुणैशयुक्तं वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारं नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। नमो विष्णु वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरणान्तिके। भक्त्या विहीनापराधलक्षै क्षिप्ताश्च कामादितरङ्गमध्यै कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So, first of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj, by whose mercy I have been able to read Jaiv Dharam, and then to the author of Jaiv Dharam, Sachidanand Thakur Shil Bhakti Vinod, and my millionfold Danvat pranams unto the lotus feet of our Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my respects to all the devotees who are assembled here today. So, last time we completed the first chapter in which we discussed how the living entity is Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potency of Shri Krishna, and how it can come under the influence of both the internal energy of the Lord as well as the external energy. That's why it is in the marginal position. And then we started the second chapter, and the question that Sannyasi Mahashay asked was that even though the living entity is atomic, then how is it possible that its nature or religion is eternal and it is complete? When something's so atomic, how can its nature be complete and eternal? And then Sannyasi Mahashay's question was answered by Babaji Maharaj. And he said that atomicity is only the external attribute or trait, is just one trait of the living entity. But the potency he explained by giving the example of a spark in a fire. So, from a fire, many sparks emanate. And if they find the right platform, right? For example, if there is dry grass, a heap of dry grass, and a spark falls on that, then it can burn that heap of fire. So, if it has its full potency is manifested, if it comes into contact with its object. So, so this is what we were discussing last time. Today is a very, very auspicious day. Today is the month of Kartik is starting, and this is the month also called the month of Srimati Radhika, Ujjeshwari Srimati Radharani, also the month of Damodar. So many wonderful pastimes of Krishna were manifested in this particular month, and especially for our spiritual upliftment, this month has a very special significance. So today is also the day when our Param Gurudev, Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he left this world for the eternal abode of the Lord. Right around this time, around 7 p.m., the Arati, the Sandhya Arati was taking place at the Mutt. And that's the time when he left his body saying Hare Krishna, and then he left. And that time, the pujari who was doing the arati, he saw that the garland of Vinod Bihari, Shri Krishna, fell down. And the time at when an acharya leaves the body shows that what leela of the Lord he has entered in. So this is the evening leela of Radha Krishna Yugal Kishore, in which our Guru Param Gurudev he entered. So very, very auspicious day. So offering our humble obeisance at his divine lotus feet, upon his instructions only, Shri Gurudev translated Jaiva Dharam from Bengali to Hindi. So we'll continue the response that Premdas Babaji gave to Sannyasi Mahashai. But again, just like every time, we have couple of quick questions, simple yes and no questions. So please take a couple of minutes to answer all these questions, and then we will continue. So they're all very simple questions. So please try and respond to each one of them. So here, when in the first question, when it says two objects, so you can think of this two objects as the Jiva, the living entity, and Krishna. Okay, just I think two have answered. So again, please try, because this is how, when you make an attempt, we'll also then discuss the response, and the concept will become clear. These are all very important points to understand. Okay, so I think I don't know who has not answered, but let's just stop here and let's see what the correct answers are. So the first question was, if there is simultaneously difference and non-difference between two objects, right? The aspect of non-difference is more prominent. So the answer to this question is no. Uh, if you remember last time, we discussed that the jiva is simultaneously different and non different from Krishna. We are non different in the sense we are in quality the same. Sat Chit Anand. We are eternal also like Krishna, and full of knowledge in our pure state as well as pure bliss in our pure state. But we are different in quantity. We are very atomic. He is Brihat, he is big, so therefore he does not come under the influence of Maya. So when there is difference and non difference at the same time, it is the difference that is prominent. So because of that difference that we are atomic, but Krishna is not. He is the supreme. It is that difference that is prominent, and that is the reason he is the controller of the Maya. He is the one with all the potencies, whereas we come under the influence of Maya. So the correct answer here is that it is the difference that is more prominent. If we say that the non-difference is more prominent, that becomes a little bit like the impersonalists, right? So please understand, this is a very important point of the Gaudiya Siddhanta. Bhed, abhed, achintya bhed, abhed tattva. The next question, everyone got it right, that the pure transcendental entities are by nature opposite of inanimate objects. So the spiritual world and the material world, totally apart. And therefore, there is no connection whatsoever between them. So that's correct. Number three is also correct. We just discussed that also, that when we come into contact with our or with the object, so, in our case, when we come into contact with the pure devotees of the Lord and engage in the process of bhajan, then the full potency of the jiva is manifested. So, the correct answer is yes. And the last question, so this was a bit tricky, that the jiva has three conditions: liberated, the conditioned state, and the tatastha. So, the correct answer is no. So, so this is where, so there are two different things. One is there are three types of potencies: internal, external, and marginal. So these are the three potencies or shaktis of the Lord, and we are manifested from the tatastha Shakti. But when we say the conditions are only two: the pure, which is the liberated state, and the conditioned state. Right? So those are the two conditions, and this was the last thing that we discussed in the previous class. Okay, so hope that becomes clear to everyone. If any questions, please do let me know. So, as we were discussing last time, that the jiva in its pure state is completely aloof from Maya, from the illusory energy. But when it falls into the material world, that's when all the problem begins. The conditioning starts. So, just like the rainwater, when it falls from the sky, it is pristine, it's very pure. In fact, you can collect that water in a pot, and that water is the purest, the freshest form of water. Nowadays, of course, because of so many chemicals that we have, there is some acidic level in the water. But if there was no such chemicals, no contamination in the air, then the water that comes from the sky is very pure. But when it falls on the ground, then it mixes with dirt, stones, insects, so many things. And that pure water becomes contaminated and it is not consumable. Now, how do you make it consumable? You have to first filter it out, remove all the dirt, remove the stones, and then probably boil it to kill all the germs in the water. And then that water again goes back to its pure state. So, similarly, by the process of filtration, washing our mind, right? Sometimes people say that we brainwash. So, when I initially came to Krishna consciousness, so some of our relatives will say, "Oh, you are getting brainwashed." And I went and told this very wonderful devotee who was teaching me those days, and I said, "Prabhu, this is what everyone is saying. And he said, yes, that's correct, because we are washing the brain. The brain is so contaminated from so many lifetimes. So, in actually, we are washing the brain of all that contamination. So slowly, as our mind becomes clean, and as by the process of the devotional service, and as we perform austerities, just like we boil the water, then we start coming back to our pure state. Now, then Premdas Babaji, he explains a very important point to Sannyasi Mahashay. He says that as long as the jiva remains pure, he maintains his identity and self conception in accordance with his unadulterated spiritual function. So, in its pure state, not a problem. But the pure egoism recedes and assumes many different forms as he is contaminated by association with Maya. So, the same example, just when the water, it comes into contact with dirt, stones, insects, once it falls on the ground, then it becomes contaminated. So, the pure form of the jiva, that pure state of the jiva, gets covered by the subtle body and then the gross body. And he explains that these are the three natures, or abhiman. In Hindi, it is called abhiman, and we can say the ego, by which we identify ourselves. So, I'm just trying to share something here. Okay. Um, okay. So here, so just try to understand this. So this is the, let's say this is the soul, right? This is our soul, which in its pure state. In the pure state, it is following the Swadharma. Swa means its original, its own nature, dharma, which is its pure original ego. And what is that ego? That I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna is my beloved master, and I am his servant. But when this jiva, because of aversion to the Supreme Lord, comes into contact with Maya, nikatastha maya tare jhapati adhare, the Maya which is right next, that external energy, because remember the jiva is tatastha marginal. So one side, the spiritual energy, the other side is the material energy. So when the living entity bhogavansha kare, when the living entity desires to enjoy material world, then the illusion covers it, and it develops a linga sharir, or the subtle body and the subtle ego. What is that subtle ego? That I am the enjoyer of fruits of my actions. So, in the pure ego, there is no such mood of enjoying your own senses. The mood is only to serve Krishna and make him happy. But in this, once that subtle ego develops because of contact with the illusory energy, then he develops this ego that I am the enjoyer of the fruits of my actions. And at that time, to enjoy those fruits, the he gets a material covering, a gross body, and that develops a gross ego. And what is that gross ego? Various bodily designations. What are those bodily designations? That I am the owner of this house, I am the owner of my wealth, I am Brahman, I am a ruler of this country, I am the owner of this business. So many different kinds. I belong to this country, I am this color, I am part of this community. So many different kind of false egos, all based on the bodily designations. And this is the gross ego. So he says, so now on the pure jiva, there are these two coverings have manifested. And the love that we have in our pure state, in our original state, that mood transforms when we get the subtle body, it transforms to the different kind of emotions of hatred. And he says, by the hmm, let's see here where he says, okay, so that prem, that love, manifests in a perverted way in the subtle body in the form of happiness and distress, attachment and aversion, and so on. So see, all of these moods that we have of love for someone in the material world, happiness, distress, these don't come from the gross body. When you are happy, it is not that any part of your body is feeling happy, it is your mind that is feeling happy, right? Similarly, distress, similarly, aversion to something. So these are all part of the subtle body. And he says this is, in fact, the transformation of that original love only, that now instead of being uh, towards Krishna, that same energy, right, that mental energy is now manifesting as uh, as love, aversion, distress, and so on. And similarly, in the gross, this perversion is observed in a more concentrated form in the gross body as the pleasures of eating, drinking, and contact with sense objects. So the desires that we have to enjoy different material things through the contact with our physical senses, again, all manifestation of that pure love. So the point here to understand is that if we, and see, this is why in spiritual life, to make progress, one thing is explained or told to us all the time: try and become detached from material objects. Try and don't enjoy the material senses, right? And actually, in devotional life, we don't even have to do that by force, because the process of bhakti is so powerful that if one honestly and sincerely applies oneself to this process, then without any effort, automatically the senses will lose the desire to enjoy sense gratification. And I think many of you must have experienced that. Many of you have been in spiritual path for a long time, and you must have experienced, and that's the reason we are all still here, because the satisfaction that we get from chanting, hearing, being with the devotees and performing devotional activities is so much superior to what one gets from the sense objects. And slowly, that love that has been forgotten, right? So slowly you start getting detached from at a gross level, then you slowly start getting pure at the subtle level. So that's happiness and distress that you were experiencing before because of various situations in life, then those conditions start having less and less effect on you, right? Krishna explains this greatly in Bhagavad Gita. And finally, one comes to the point of Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. Then no anxieties, na shochati, not becoming despondent or miserable because of anything, and na kankshati, not desiring anything material. Why? Because he is experiencing that blissful state internally. Now is connection with his at the level of the soul and connecting with the Lord. So just like, so going back to the example of the rain, first it became contaminated, then through the process it became pure. So similarly, we, by the process of devotional service, first of all, the things that we have attachment to at a gross level, first that attachment goes away. And that's why we see many times it's very easy to give up the desire for the attachment to luxury items and many different things, easy to give up, but the attachment still stays at the subtle level, at the level of our mind. Those are a little bit more harder to give away. Various kind of anarthas are there, but if we keep continuing the process, then that also goes away. So he says, then one again, the eternal function of the jiva in its pure state is manifested. So so the dharma that arises in the conditioned state is circumstantial, is called nemitic. So remember, this whole section of Jaiva Dharam is talking about nitya dharam, which is eternal, religion, and nemitic dharma, which is circumstantial. Because of some reason, we are doing things, but that's not our eternal nature. But Nitya Dharma is by nature complete, pure, and eternal. And then he explains that it is the Vaishnav Dharma, the the Sanatan Dharam, the Vaishnav Dharam, as has been explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the Nitya Dharam, or the eternal religion. So when we say something is eternal, something is Nitya, that means there are certain religions that are not eternal, right? So um, can you all see the slide? I'm not sure. I having a little bit problem sharing and unsharing. Are you able to see the slide?
Yes, we can
Yes,
see it.
Prabhu, we can see
You
the
can see it.
slide.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me. I think let me share it again. Uh, okay. Okay. So he says that three types of dharma. The first he says is anitya dharma. Anitya means impermanent religion. And what is the definition that Babaji Maharaj gives? He says that religion in which the eternality of the Supreme Lord is not accepted. They do not accept that there is a supreme power who is the creator, who is the maintainer, and who is the source of everything. They don't believe in the supreme power. Neither do they fully accept the eternality, or they do not accept the eternality fully of the soul, neither of the process by which we become liberated. So does not accept the eternality of the soul or the existence of the Ishvara. So that is Anitya Dharam. And later on, he will explain one example of which one is an Anitya Dharam. Then Nimittic, which is circumstantial religion. So in here, they accept that there is a supreme. They acknowledge the existence of Ishvara and also acknowledge that the soul is eternal. However, the process that they follow to achieve liberation, or the process that they follow to connect with the supreme, that process is not eternal, means it's a temporary process. And what that means, I'll explain the next in Nitya Dharam. So Nitya Dharam is eternal religion, meaning they accept that there is a supreme who is eternal. In this Nitya Dharma, it is also accepted that the soul is eternal, and the process by which the living entity, the soul, connects with the supreme is also eternal. Now, what does eternal mean? Eternal means that process is always there. That means there is never a time that that process by which we are connecting with the Supreme Lord becomes useless or is meaningless. Right? So now think about what we do. We Our process is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That means this process is not just for a temporary phase. Right? Unlike the yogis and those who are impersonalists, they sit down and they perform tapasya, right? They sit down and meditate. But they only meditate, or as per their own philosophy, that meditation is only till the time they achieve oneness with that supreme absolute which is all pervading. After that, because they are saying we become one with him, and there is no me, there is no him, everything is one, and then that process of meditation is no more required. That means it's not an eternal process. Whereas the truth is, the process does not finish, because this process is a manifestation of that love, and he will explain it later on also, that relationship we have with him. So Sanatan Goswami, one of our great acharyas, he wrote a book called Brihat Bhagavatamrit, in which he describes the journey of Gop Kumar, who's a cowherd boy, and he receives a mantra called the Gopal mantra from his spiritual master. Gopal mantra is one of the 7 Gayatri mantras that we receive at the time of initiation. The second initiation, as sometimes it is called, but that's the real initiation of Diksha. So as he chants, he keeps chanting, and he actually goes from one planetary system to the next. He actually goes to the heaven, then he is able to go to even Brahmalok. There he even becomes Brahma, and then he crosses the boundary of this material world and goes to Vaikuntha. It's a very beautiful um, story with lot of beautiful instructions. But once he reaches Vaikuntha, he sees Lord Narayan. Now he sees Lord Narayan. He says, "Oh, this him. He is the one that I was aspiring for." Because every place he went, he feels that, "Oh, this is what the destination I was looking for." But he keeps chanting his mantra, that Gopal mantra, because he's chanting, his soul is slowly blossoming, right, and his mood is developing, and then he starts becoming very restless, and then he gets to the next level, and finally he reaches Vaikuntha. There also, after some time, in the beginning he is very happy. Oh, I have achieved the abode of the Lord. But after some time he starts becoming restless there as well. So that time his spiritual master Narad ji, he appears, and he tells, "Oh my dear son, till this point you were able to come by the process of chanting these Gayatri mantra, but beyond this, even the Gayatri mantras can't take you." So Gurudev has written a book called Going Beyond Vaikuntha, where he explains this in great detail. So he says, "How would I go beyond this? And is there something beyond this?" He said, "Yes. But there you can simply go only by chanting the names of Krishna." And then he gives him initiation, or in chanting of the names of the Lord, and very beautiful names, just like we chant the Maha Mantra. So he chants Shri Krishna Gopal Hare Mukunda Govinda He Nanda Kishore Krishna Ha Shri Yashoda Tanaya Prasida Shri Vallabhi Jivan Radhikesha. So beautiful names of Krishna, glorifying many of his pastimes. So by chanting these, Gop Kumar reaches the final destination, which is Golok Dham, Braj Dham. And there he sees Krishna, who is herding the cows, and he achieves his pure form as a cowherd boy in Krishna's pastimes. So it is only the chanting of the holy names that gets him there. And once he gets there, he still does not give up the chanting. Why? Because everyone in Braj is still chanting. The gopis are chanting, Mother Yashoda is chanting, Nanda Baba, they're all chanting. So when Mother Yashoda is making curd or makhan, butter from curd, and as she's churning the yogurt, what is she chanting? Govinda Damodar Madhaveti, Govinda Damodar Madhaveti. And similarly, the cowherd girls, the gopis, as they go out selling butter and yogurt, and they're so absorbed in Krishna that instead of saying buy yogurt, buy butter, they are saying Vikre to kama khil gopakanya murari pad arpita chitta vritti dadhyadhikam mohavashat avochat govinda damo dharmadhaveti. Bilvamangal Thakur is singing this, that instead of saying buy butter, buy yogurt, they are saying buy Damodar, buy Madhav. Govind, Damodar, Madhaveti, buy Govind, buy Damodar. So this is so, so this what this means is that the chanting of the holy name is an eternal process. Except for this, all other processes are not eternal. They only take you to a certain point, and after that, that process is not effective. But it is only bhakti. It's only the process of bhakti which stays eternal, because bhakti is not a process. Bhakti is also our goal, because bhakti means what? It means love. So when we achieve our pure state, that does not mean that we become inactive or we lose emotions. It's just that our activities become pure and our emotions become pure, and they're all targeted towards Krishna. So this is a very important point that he explained between these three types of religions. And then he explains that even though this eternal religion may be known by different names in different countries, race, and languages, and but the one of the ideal examples of Nitya Dharam is Vaishnav Dharam, and he says that this pristine state of Vaishnav Dharam has also been preached by the Lord as Shachinandan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He came to this world and taught this to everyone. It is for this reason that great personalities absorbed in the bliss of divine love have accepted these teachings and taken help from them. So, so this is how he concludes the answer to the first question. Then Sannyasi Mahashay asks a very interesting next question. But before we go to the next one, let's quickly see if anyone has any questions. If anyone has any question, you can also, yeah.
Does the subtle body, does it die at the death of the gross body?
Very good question. So when, as long as we are in this material world, so when the gross body dies and we transmigrate from one body into the next body, the subtle body does not die. The subtle body is actually the one that carries the soul from this physical body to the next physical body. And all the activities that we have done, not only in this life, so basically we get the subtle body the moment we come into the material world. And through every lifetime, even though we get different physical bodies, but the subtle body stays the same. And the mind carries the impressions from all the previous lives. So that's the reason when you see, sometimes you see that in a family, three children, are born. They are being brought up by the same parents. They're living in the same house. They are being fed the same food. They're probably going to exactly the same school also, but they all three of them have different nature, right? Why? Because they have different impressions from their previous lifetimes. So the subtle body stays, and that's the reason the conditioning continues as long as the subtle body stays. So once the subtle body is purified, right? Once the subtle body is purified through the process of devotional service, then when we leave this material world, so when the soul crosses the covering of this material universe, that's the time the subtle body burns, because it is still materialistic in nature, material in nature. It stays here, it is burnt, and then you get a spiritual subtle body, and that's what goes with the soul into the spiritual world. So yeah, so subtle body, and Krishna also explains this in Bhagavad Gita, the subtle body does not die at the time of death. Okay, so we'll continue. Anyone else has any question? Yes, Rituji.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I just wanted to understand again the three dharmas. The first one was not very clear to me. The difference between all three.
Yeah. So the first one is anitya. Anitya means impermanent. So in which they do not believe that there is a supreme. So they do not believe in the supreme. They do not believe in the eternality of the soul. And the process also that they follow is not is a temporary process. So that is anitya. In the namitic dharma, they believe that there is a supreme. They also believe in the eternality of the soul, but the process they follow is a temporary process. So I was giving the example of yogis, right, who just meditate. And nitya dharma is where they believe that the Ishwar, there is a supreme controller, he is eternal, we are eternal, and the process that is being followed is also eternal. Okay. So that is those three types of dharma. Now, next very beautiful part of this chapter. So then Sannyasi Mahashay, he folds his hands and he says that I've been witnessing that how this Vaishnav Dharam preached by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is super excellent. And I have clearly realized that contemptible, nature of Shankaracharya's monastic doctrine. So he's basically saying that what Shankaracharya preached is contemptible. So he uses a derogatory word. He says, still something has come to my mind which I feel I must submit to you. I don't want to hide it. I understand that Mahabhav, which is a very high state of ecstatic love, which was displayed by Sri Chaitanya, is the highest state of concentrated prem or love. He says, is it different from the attainment of the perfection of absolute oneness? So he says, in Shankara's philosophy, they talk of oneness, that we merge with that all-pervading transcendental effulgence, and that oneness, is it the same as that mood of Mahabhav, where a devotee becomes completely absorbed in the Lord? So are they both the same? Now see what Babaji Maharaj he answers. So when Paramhans Das Babaji heard the name of Sri Shankaracharya, now Sannyasi Mahashay was in the line of Shankaracharya, so he was an Advaitist before he came, before he saw that Vaishnav devotee chanting and he became so attracted. Before that, he was an impersonalist, so he was in the Shankara line, and still he uses a derogatory word for what Shankaracharya preached. But now see Prem Das Babaji, who is a pure Vaishnav, what his reaction is. Just hearing the name of Sri Shankaracharya, he offered prostrated obeisances unto the Acharya. Not just sitting and did like this, like many of us do. Hearing the name, he literally fell on the ground and paid prostrated obeisances. And he said, respected sir, Shankaraha Shankaraha Sakshat. Shankaracharya is none other than Mahadev Shankar or Shivji. He said, Shankaracharya is not an ordinary person. He is Lord Shiva himself, who came in the form of Shankaracharya. You should always remember this. Shankar is Guru for the Vaishnavas. And for this reason, Mahaprabhu has referred to him as an Acharya. So he's not just called Shankar, Guru Shankar or something. He's called Shankar Acharya. For his own part, Sri Shankar was a perfect devotee. So there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam in the third, in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the last canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and chapter 13 is the last chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it says, Nimna Nimna Ganam Yatha Ganga Devanam Achyut Yatha Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu Purananam Idam Tatha. So he says, just like among all the rivers, the Ganges is the supreme. Among all the worshipable entities, Achyut, Shri Krishna is the supreme. Among all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, just like among all the Vaishnavas, the foremost Vaishnav is Lord Shiva, Shambhu. Similarly, among all the scriptures, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme. So here it clearly says Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, that among all the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the supreme. Therefore, we should never ever disrespect Lord Shiva, because he is a great devotee of the Lord. Now, he certainly came here and he preached something which seems like that he preached something against. And I can tell you, I had read many times about impersonalism, heard about it, but it is these 2 or 3 pages of Jaiva Dharma where Premdas Babaji explains what Shankaracharya actually taught and what the current followers of Shankaracharya, who are called Mayavadis, what they understand and what they preach is so different that actually made it very clear to me as well. So it's a very important point that now he will explain. So he says that when Sri Shankaracharya appeared, he appeared for a specific reason. Because at that time in India, in the name of the Vedic knowledge, in the name of the Vedas, lot of wrong was being done. For example, in the Vedas, there is some leeway, or some rituals are given for those who cannot control their tongue. They want to eat meat, so generally it is prohibited. But to help those, so that somehow they will engage in some activity which is religious in nature, there is a recommendation that first of all, you cannot eat it any day and every day. It has to be very, very restricted at a certain time, performing a sacrifice in a certain way to an animal, which has to be selected a certain way. So a lot of different conditions are there, and then that animal can be sacrificed. But it is not without restrictions. So this is just one example. Like this, many other rituals are given. But slowly, what happened, as it happens with the effect of the time, all of this was forgotten, and the Vedic scriptures and were being used as a pretext to do all kind of nonsensical things, and people were just whimsically creating their own philosophies. So first, the people had to be taken away from these wrong ideas. So Lord Buddha came, and Lord Buddha is also one of the 10 incarnations. So he came and he preached Shunyavad, voidism, and he basically said that we should not follow the Vedas. Right, the first thing for him was to take away people from what they were doing. So he preached non-violence, ahimsa paramo dharma. Nowadays, of course, unfortunately, many Buddhists also don't follow that. But the main point that Lord Buddha preached was ahimsa, or non-violence. But here he says he completely opposed the personal conception of Bhagwan, although it partially accepts the principle of living beings' identity as a spiritual soul. He does not accept that there is a supreme. He does not fully even accept that the Jiva is eternal. He just say everything ultimately is void. So this is one example of anitya dharam, right? So the three that we were discussing, this is an example of anitya dharam. So now the point is that the Vedas are the basis of all knowledge. It is they're eternal. Now, because of some reason, this kind of corruption had happened in the society. So, upon the instruction of the Lord Himself, Shankaracharya, or Lord Shankar, came. He was instructed by the Lord to go and preach the philosophy of Advaitavad, or impersonalism, because first the Vedic philosophy to some extent had to be established. And Shankar said, why should I go and preach something which is at least externally seems to be averse to you, because it doesn't accept the personal form of the Lord. So why should I go and preach? I'm your devotee. But Krishna said, no, you have to do it. Why? Because you are my best devotee. So see, this is a point of sacrifice that only devotees understand. Just like Lord Ram, he came to kill Ravan and he had to leave Ayodhya. So he had to have some pretext. So what did he do? He went to Mother Kakai and asked Mother that I want you to give me, I am just asking you something. What are you asking? But first promise that whatever I ask, you will give. And she said, my life is for you, Ram. Whatever you ask, no, you first promise. And she said, okay. And then he said, please go to Father Maharaj Dashrath and ask him for two boons. One, that Bharat should become the king, and that I should be banished to the forest for 14 years. Hearing this, Kakai fainted. She said, how can I do this? I can't live even a fraction, what to talk of a second, not even for a fraction of a second without you. Because, see, of all the 360 queens that Maharaj Dashrath had, Lord Ram's mother was Kaushalya Devi, but he loved Mother Kakai the most. And similarly, Mother Kakai, even though her own son was Bharat, she actually loved Sri Ram the most. So, because Mother Kakai loved her the most, Sri Ram went to her. He did not go to Sumitra or any of the other queens and asked her for this help. So someone who is the most devoted will make the greatest sacrifice for his beloved, right? So Shri Krishna said, no, you have to go. So Shankaracharya, accepting the order of the Lord, he came and he preached the philosophy of monism. But as part of that, he re-established the credibility of the Vedic literatures and converted the Buddhists who were, who believed in voidism into the Brahmavad doctrine, which does talk about featureless absolute truth, but at least people at that time started accepting the Vedic scriptures. So Babaji says, Premdas Babaji, this was an extraordinary feat, and India will remain ever indebted to Sri Shankaracharya for this tremendous contribution. So, so therefore, first thing he establishes that Shankaracharya has to be respected, and he came and did this for a specific reason. And then he says, see, our activities fall in two categories. Some activities are just circumstantial, they are given for a particular period of time, you do something, and some are eternal. Similarly, the instructions of the spiritual master, some instructions are given for that condition, for to that person in some special circumstances, but those are not eternal instructions, because the eternal instructions of the spiritual master will be exactly what has been received from the Guru Parampara and what is in the scriptures. But let's say someone is very, so, we normally chant on our beads on 16 rounds. We should, sit quietly and chant. But, someone is sick, he's bedridden, can't get up, and can't even, have the strength to chant on the beads. So the Guru may say, no problem, beta, you can just take a counter or just chant like that. It is perfectly fine. But if we take someone who's healthy and who can chant on the beads and says, oh, Gurudev said, I can just chant any way I want. No, that is not correct, because that instruction was given only for a particular reason to a particular person under particular circumstances. So he says that some activities, some instructions are relative to a particular period of time. And what Shankaracharya preached was only a relative instruction. It is not an eternal instruction. So he said, but at the same time, he did a great contribution, and what he laid as a foundation by throwing out Buddhism from that time, from Bharatvarsh, he laid the foundation upon which the great acharyas like Sri Ramanujacharya erected the edifice of pure Vaishnav Dharma. So each of the acharyas come to perform a specific function. In Bhavishya Puran, it explains that how the Lord instructed Shivji, and then Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbaditya, all of them he instructed to go and preach a specific aspect of the philosophy, and each one of them built upon what the previous acharya had instructed. And then finally, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared about 550 years ago, and then he preached the Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva. So, what he preached was finally the complete thing. But Shankaracharya himself, Lord Shiva himself, is telling to Mother Durga. This is a verse from Padma Puran where he says, Mayavad asat shastram prachannam bodham uchyate. Maya ev vihitam devi kalau brahmana murtina. He says, Maya ev. Maya ev means I only, O Devi, I only will go in the age of Kali Yuga, Brahman Murtina, in the form of a Brahman, and then I will preach Mayavad, which is Asat Shastram. Asat Shastram means it is not eternal religion. It is full of discrepancies, but there was a need for that at that time. So he comes and preaches it. So he himself is saying that. So then Babaji Mahashay continues, and he says that, and this is where he explains a very important point. He says there are many aspects in why he's saying that Shankaracharya laid the foundation on which the subsequent acharyas they presented the philosophy. See, just like when we are not ready to receive highest knowledge, then we have to start from some place, right? So when the society is so corrupted, first those weeds have to be thrown out. So just like when Param Pujya Pashil Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj came to the Western world in 1965, nobody knew who Krishna is. Nobody knew what vegetarianism is. Nobody had any clue. So first he had to establish the basics. He knew everything. He is an eternal associate of the Lord, but the situation was such, the time was such, he first had to establish the basics. And he preached very, very forcefully against impersonalism. Similarly, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Param Gurudev, because the time was such. But as people, as the devotees over years, they understood the basics. Now they were ready to get to the next level. And that's when, upon the instructions of the Acharyas, our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he came and he explained in great detail why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this world. If Swami Maharaj had tried to explain this in 1965, nobody would have understood. What is Mahabhav? What is Rag? What is Anurag? All of this will be explained in the third part of Jaiva Dharma. And as we discussed in the first class, there's a reason why Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written this book the way he has written, starting from the first chapter from the basics. So he says that there are many, many concepts that are exactly the same in Shankara's philosophy and the Vaishnava philosophy. So what are those? He explains. So let's just see this. Where is the... Okay, I'm trying to share this screen. Okay. So he explains that there are many similarities in Vaishnav and Shankar's philosophy. And what are those similarities? The first, he says, they both agree that the Jiva is eternal. Right? No difference here. Also, that Jiva is completely distinct and separate from the gross and material bodies. So, distinct, it is not gross, it is not subtle, so it is different from all these material and subtle elements. Then, also, the same concept is there in both, that liberation from the material world means giving up all connection, all attachment, both at the gross and the subtle level from the material world. And then, as far as Sri Shankaracharya himself is concerned, he also propounded that worship of Sri Hari is the method by which one can purify the heart and attain liberation. He is the one who preached Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaj Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihiti Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dushkrit Karne. That chant the names of Govinda, chant the names of Govinda, chant the names of Govinda, because at the time of death, nothing else will help you. So Shankaracharya himself, beautiful verses he wrote, Bhaj Govindam. And then in the Gita Mahatmyam, he wrote 7 verses where he clearly states, Ekaha Devaha Devaki Putra. There is only one Dev, one Ishwar, and he is the son of Mother Devaki, Krishna. There is only one Shastra, Gita, and he says there is only one process, which is the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Clearly states in his glorification of Bhagavad Gita, because he is a devotee. But nowadays, of course, as Babaji Mahasaya will explain, his followers don't accept that. So these are the similarities. And where is the difference? He says the difference is only in one aspect. And that aspect is that Shankaracharya did not explain the the apurva, meaning the special, the extraordinary destination that the jiva attains after liberation. So up to the point that yes, we should attain liberation and freedom from the material world, both are the same. But once we attain liberation, what happens to us? That's where the difference starts, because he just became quiet, right? Because at that point, people could only understand up to that point. So he explains that nothing beyond this point. Whereas in Vaishnav Dharam, it goes to the point of how we attain the abode of the Lord. So he says Shankara knew perfectly well that if the Jiva could be prompted to strive for liberation through the worship of Hari, they would gradually become attached to the pleasure of bhajan and thus become pure devotees. That is why he simply pointed out the path and did not reveal further confidential secrets of Vaishnav Dharma. So he just said, chant the names of Hari. But how one achieves that supreme destination, he did not explain that. He says, those who have scrutinized the commentaries of Shankara can understand his inner intention, but those who are only preoccupied with the external aspect of his teaching remain far from the threshold of Vaishnav Dharma. So, so now I'll take 5, 6 more minutes just to complete some more important points, and then we will conclude and see if anyone has any questions. He says that from one specific point, so the question that, so he's just giving a little bit history, he's explaining who's Shankaracharya and what were the main points of his philosophy and why did he teach only up to a certain point. But the question that Sannyasi Mahashaya had asked is Mahabhav and that Advait Siddhi, or the perfection that the impersonalists talk about, is it the same? So here now Babaji Mahashaya explains that. He says from one specific point of view, that state of absolute oneness seems identical to prem. However, the narrow interpretation of absolute oneness is certainly different from the meaning of prem. So then he says, what is really love? He says you should understand clearly that prem is the unadulterated function by which two transcendental entities are spontaneously attracted to each other. See, each sentence of Jaiva is also so deep, it will take a long time to explain it. But see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur is capturing the essence of so many siddhanta in one each individual line. He says real love is when two transcendental entities uh, are spontaneously attracted to each other. And he says this is the unadulterated function of those entities, meaning that the love we see in the material world is not really true love. It is lust, and that's the reason it does not give us complete satisfaction or happiness. But now he explains a very important point. He says if there is love, then it has to be two things. Love cannot be manifested. I cannot love. Now you can say I love myself, but that does not really mean, because I cannot serve myself, because love ultimately means unconditional loving service, right? Love between two. And when we love in this world, it is more for my own gratification. But in real love, the concern is that you are, the mood is that how my beloved is becoming happy by my activities, by my service. So he says that prem or love cannot occur without the separate existence of two transcendental activities. So he says it is important to understand that for love to manifest, there is Krishna and then there is Jiva, there is the living entity. And between them, the Prem Tattva is an eternally perfect truth. So then he again explains that there are um, two things, three things that we need to understand when we are trying to understand what love is. So he says that um, okay. So there are three ingredients of enjoyment. One, the relisher of love, so that is Krishna, and the object that is relished, that is Jiva, and that which is relished, which is pure love. So in anything, so for example, yesterday someone asked this question that if I am drinking juice of peach or orange, how do you explain this? So in that case, the relisher is you as the person who's drinking. The object that you are relishing is the juice, and what you are relishing is the taste of the juice, right? That sweetness and that satisfaction that you are getting, that what you are relishing. So that which is relished is pure love. So he says these and that can only be, just like I cannot clap with one hand, I have to have two hands to clap. So similarly, for the love to manifest, there have to be two. But he says we can say, so he says this is an accepted fact Prem cannot be eternal reality if the one who delights in Prem is one and the same as the object of Prem. So there has to be a subject and as object. So it's also called Ashray and Vishay. One is the object of love, and there is one within whom the love resides. You cannot have love if there is only one. So he says that we can say that absolute oneness is the same as Prem if we define Advait Siddhi as the pure state of transcendental entity who has no relationship with the insentient material matter. So he says that if we say that Advait Siddhi, or the perfection that impersonalists talk about, is the pure state of the transcendental soul where it has no connection with the material world, then we can, in one sense, say that it is the same as Prem. Now he explains this in great detail. I'm just going to describe very briefly because we are running out of time. So, what he says, what he's trying to explain here is that in the pure state, when the soul has no connection with the matter and it is only the complete absorption, it's similar to what in the path of Prem, in the path of Vaishnava philosophy, that one becomes so absorbed, the lover becomes so absorbed in the beloved that in one sense there is no difference. So, this is, see, when we say there is no difference, it is not that there is no difference in their identities, but their nature, they become one in their mood. Right? So, I'll just give one example. So today is the disappearance day of our Param Gurudev, Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, and he wrote a very beautiful uh, um, Ashtakam, which is called Radha Vinod Bihari Ashtakam. So his worshipable deities are Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari ji, and he wrote 8 beautiful verses glorifying them. And the very first verse he writes, Radha Chinta Niveshena Yasya Kanti Vilopita Shri Krishnam Charanam Vande Radha Lingit Vigraham. He says, Krishna, who is blackish in complexion, but thinking of Srimati Radhika, Radha Chinta Niveshena. So again, very deep points that how he's so absorbed thinking of Srimati Radhika that Yasya Kanti Vilopita, that his own blackish complexion became disappeared. So I worship that Shri Krishna Charanam Vande Radha Lingit Vigraham, who has taken the complexion of Srimati Radhika, the golden complexion. So that's why in Gaudiya Mutt, like many places, Krishna's deity is blackish. But if you come to Gaudiya Mutt here, he is white because he's in the mood of Srimati Radhika, a very high state, right? But this is what he's trying to explain, that the love becomes so intense that in the nature, in that mood of love, there is oneness between the lover and the beloved. So in that Advait Siddhi also, to some extent we can say yes, it is the same, because one achieves that level of absorption or complete disconnection from the material world. But he says Shankaracharya described the state of non distinction simply as the unadulterated condition of spiritual substance. However, his modern day followers could not understand his inner intention, and consequently, they have marred their guru's reputation. So he says nowadays, those who are Mayavadis, and I'll just share this last one point and then we will stop. He says those who are currently the followers of Shankaracharya, they have come up with their own ideas, which is not what Shankaracharya taught. And he says this is the distortion of Shankara's philosophy. And what do they say? They deny the existence of anything except one spiritual substance. So they say there is only one, that one effulgence, transcendental, nothing. There is only one thing. So therefore, since there is only one, they deny that function of love exists within that spiritual substance. So that Brahman, they say, cannot love because he is only one. And that Brahm, now how do they explain the manifestation of the Jiva? So what they're saying is that the Brahm becomes overwhelmed by Maya. This is one of the biggest problems of the Mayavad philosophy. We'll discuss this in more detail later on. And because they do not believe in the form, they say form of Bhagwan is an illusory manifestation. Okay, that yes, we can meditate just for the purpose of meditation, but this is not an eternal form. It's an illusory form, so therefore do not accept it. None of these things were taught by Shankaracharya. So it says that's the reason we do not accept what Mayavad is, but we do accept Shankaracharya and we do accept the basics of whatever he preached. So we will stop here. There is, he some more points that he will explain, and we'll continue that next time. Sorry, it took a little longer today. Some very important points Babaji Mahasaya was explaining, so I didn't want to stop before completing it. So let's see if anyone has any questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavats.
Hare Krishna, Dandavats Prabhuji.
So regarding Shankaracharya, so the philosophy, I thought the philosophy he originally propounded was Mayavada philosophy. So are you saying that today's Mayavadi philosophers are saying something different and manufacturing something different from what Shankaracharya originally said?
Yes, absolutely. So he did not preach what he preached was, that's why it is called Advaitvad or Brahmavad. Right? So there is, if you just Google also, you see there's a difference between Brahmavad and Mayavad. There is some subtle difference in there. So he said, of course he said Aham Brahmasmi, but when he's saying Aham Brahmasmi, there Brahm means that we are not gross bodies, but we are Brahman in nature, means we are eternal in nature. We are not material bodies, we are spiritual entities. But if he was preaching impersonalism or Mayavad as they say today, then why would he sing Bhaj Govindam? Why would he sing the glories of Sri Krishna, right? So yes, so that's correct. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also saying that what is preached nowadays is not what Shankara, what he actually taught. And that's why I said that only after reading this answer, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained here, it actually became clear to me also what is the difference between Brahmavad and Mayavad. Sometimes, we feel they are one and the same thing, but then I researched a little bit more, and there are differences between these two. So modern day philosophy of Mayavad is not what Shankaracharya actually taught. Okay. So any other questions? So please read this part of Jaiva Dharam. If you have any questions, please do let me know. We can take those questions next time. And next week also, we will have the class on Monday only, because again, we have a program next Sunday as well. So we'll have the class at this time only next week also, next Monday, not on Sunday. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you everyone for joining. Hare Krishna, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari
Hari Hari
Bol.
Bol, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.